there's so many great reasons why students in high school want to play sports, whether that's football or basketball, for anything. I mean, for one, there's the family aspect where you get to meet new people in your school. And for me, I just think that's great. I've met some of my best friends for life playing high school basketball and football. For other reasons, it might be just because the sport is fun or because they want to get in better shape. And then, there's always those kids that are doing it for the jersey. They want to be like, oh, I'm a football player, but, we won't talk about those kids. As far as for me goes, there are so many reasons why I love playing the game. For one, I play the game for the love of it, and two, I do it for the glory of God. And the reason I say I do it for the glory of God is because I feel like He has blessed me so innumerously that I owe Him all that credit, and I wouldn't be anywhere I am today without Him. Here is a picture of me playing basketball and me standing up at number 11 as the captain of my football team the senior year. I knew that I wanted to be a professional athlete back in second grade, but for me then it wasn't football, it was basketball. I had just started playing football. Eventually I realized, and yes, this isn't me in second grade, I was big, but I was not that big. That's my sophomore year in high school. Back to what I was saying, excuse me. I eventually switched over to football because I realized that that's what I was better about, and I became more passionate about it. And I think that's something that a lot of you guys can relate to, because when you're passionate about something, you're good at something, you want to do that thing. And I realized that football was just the better path for me, so I eventually dropped basketball, even though I love basketball, because I felt like that's what I needed to do to be the best I could do. And you guys will see later when I show the statistics how important that really is. A lot of people have big dreams. A doctor's dream might be to be the man that cures cancer. A stay-at-home mom might be to win the lottery, which is a pretty low percent chance, which is around the same percent chance of a player making it to the NFL from high school. And that is my dream. Here we have some statistics just so you get a general idea of the likelihood of a player actually making the NFL. Over on the far right, I just want to point this out right away. Out of high school, it's a 0.08% chance that you're going to make it to NFL as a high school football player. If you make it to D1 college, which only 2.9% of students who play high school football make it, you have a better chance than any of the other schools. But if you look at it, then there's also a 1.9% chance that you make it to D2 and a 2.5% chance that you make it to D3. As far as if you make it to that level, on average, you're going to have an average of 1.6% chance of making it to the NFL after you are in college. The odds might vary a little bit depending on if you make D1 or D3. But the real statistic that mattered was the D1 one, and you'll see why in just a second. Over here, you have the FBS schools, and then you have the D1 FCS schools. They're both D1, but it's a subcategory of D1. Basically, the biggest difference is the FBS has more money, which in turn allows them to spend more money paying better coaches, getting better players, getting more of those players, and better programs to support those players. And you see the significance of that when you look at the 2019 draft. And you can see that FBS schools recruited 238 people or football players to the NFL, and FCS schools at D1 only recruited 11. Which is just an insane statistic. And the D2 schools only had 5 recruitees going to the NFL, and then D3 didn't even have any this year. So if we go to the next slide, so that's kind of me showing you the percentages, and you understand why the odds are so low for me, but this is my dream that I want to pursue. And unlike winning the lottery as a mom, there are some things that I can do to increase my chances. The first thing we should take a look at is NCAA eligibility. Basically, you have 5 years to play 4 years of varsity football, and sometimes 6 in rare situations. We'll talk about that later and how it has to do with when you get injured. But if you go to the next slide, we can talk about preserving eligibility. The first option is you have the gap year. You can spend this several ways. You can spend it at home, but if you're trying to get to the next level of football or any sport for that matter, it's probably not the best because you're not going to be improving at all. Or you can go to a prep school where you spend 1 year there preparing you for college, and you get bigger, faster, and stronger. And a third option is you can gray shirt at a JUCO, a junior college. Another name for it that you guys probably know is a community college, and it's a 2-year school. But when you go to a community college and you play, generally you're going to be burning a year of eligibility if you don't gray shirt. Gray shirting is basically taking less than 12 credit classes at a time, which causes you to become a full-time student. And when you're a full-time student, you start to burn your clock of eligibility. So it might sound kind of complicated, but it should start to make more and more sense as I explain things. Talking about redshirting, there's a couple options coming out of high school. You can go to JUCO or prep like I talked about, or you can go to the college of your choice. Now, what's the best option? If you have the college of your choice recruiting you, you're going to want to probably go there and redshirt the first year, and then you have 4 more years that you can play varsity football after you spend that year getting better. Going on from that, if you aren't able to get the college of choice, another option is to go JUCO. If you go JUCO, like I said before, you're probably going to be burning your eligibility, but if you don't take classes, you cannot burn it, but you also can't play in any games, and that's one of the big difference between prep schools and JUCO schools. Is prep schools you can play, because you're not a full-time student, and therefore you don't burn a year of eligibility. And I think this is so important to understand whether you're playing sports or not, because one day you might have kids, and it's an important process to understand. I encourage any of you guys to go home and research this a little more so you can understand it in case you ever have to be a parent going through that situation. I know my dad helped me a lot figuring this stuff out. As far as medical redshirt, this is that weird situation where you can actually have 6 years to play 4 years of varsity football. If you are on your 4th game, so first you have the gray shirt. A prep school year is considered a gray shirt too, except for you're allowed to play. But if you go on to play JUCO for a 2nd year and you get injured before you have played over 5 games, so you can play 4 or less games and get injured, and basically they won't count that season against you, and you can still have another 4 years to play varsity football. As far as JUCO versus prep, you say you don't get into that school that you really want to get into, which is, for my situation that I'm in right now, is I spend a lot of time trying to decide which one of these is the best options for me. And the biggest difference is JUCO is more competitive. You're going to have stronger competition, more kids on the team, because part of it is just that the teams have more money and they're trying to win championships. So the coaches are generally going to play the best player. And it's more of a risky thing, because if you aren't that best player, you might be burning a year of eligibility if you play in a game and you're a full-time student and you don't even get hardly any playing time at all. So it's kind of like a high risk, high reward. I ended up choosing to go to the JUCO route. I'm going to California, Fullerton, because I wanted to take that risk and I wanted to be the best athlete I could be, not only get recruited, but be ready to play at the next level when I get recruited, and I wanted that extra coaching and being able to go against, the high level competition. Prep school is great though, because you're most likely you aren't going to burn out eligibility, unlike JUCO, which you probably are, and you still get to play. The biggest thing is you're a bigger fish in a smaller pond. If we go on to the next slide, how do you get recruited? There's a couple of things you can do. You can go to camps. You can go on social media. Twitter is the big thing now. It used to be email, but they don't use that as much anymore. And if you start texting, you just want to start following all those college coaches that you're interested in and reach out to them. If they reach out to you, eventually you can exchange numbers and get a hold of them and talk to them on the phone. Is going to be one of the biggest things you can do. Another thing you can do is go to a football camp. There's ones that rate people, which is actually really important. I didn't do this enough because I actually got injured and wasn't able to. And you also want to go to those college camps. Let's say you want to go to U of O. You want to go to U of O's camp if that's where you want to go. That's how they're going to see you play, get to know you. Have questions ready if you're going to call a coach. So it's a fluid conversation and you can get straight to the point. And it's okay to, ask for opinions on what you should be doing. And I'll talk about that on the next slide, which is how do you decide. You can seek help from advisors, which would be your football coaches and parents. You can figure out what coach really wants you, which I think is the most important thing. Is, do you really want to go to a great school where you're not going to play? Or do you want to go to that iffy school, but you're going to be playing, you're going to be that star player? Another thing is you want to go to a program that's going to play in the way you need to be played. and this is going to teach you the things that are going to develop you. And that's all I have for you today. I think I got a couple slides here that you can screenshot that I put the bulletin's point or take a picture of yourself. And I just think it's an overall great process to understand. Thank you for your time.